Welcome, people. It's Mr. back again with the previous show. I hope everyone's fit and well. And yes, another game for Nottingham Forest. And this time, hopefully, the game is on, but we'll talk about that later on. Okay, if you are new to the channel, please do hit the like button, subscribe if you know. I'm trying to get to 7K as you can to the end of the season. Big game for us. You also like to get your pictures in as well. Right, I've got a special guest. I've got a Bournemouth fan in John. How you doing, John?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Fingers crossed that we're not going to be talking about this again in 2 or 4 weeks' time instead.
But John's, we've got a YouTube channel as well. Every time someone comes from the channel, I like to promote the channel. John, before you do, I know you got what's your YouTube channel called?
I've appeared on a channel called Cherry's Red Army, and there's also another Bournemouth fan channel that I appeared on called Back of the Net. They're the two main channels for Bournemouth fans to keep an eye on. So if you want to hear me pratter on a bit, then I'm probably on one of those shows every other week.
Right. So like I said, people go and follow the channel. The link is below, so make sure you do subscribe, please. Right. Let's start. Like I said, big game for both clubs. And there's been a bit of iffy if the game will on and off. I know if you've seen the statement, there was a statement on Bournemouth like it could be off. But if any Forest fans are travelling to Bournemouth like myself, please watch out for your social media because it's going to be a horrible, a really terrible day with the whatever's happening around UK. But it's going to be bad. But like I said, people, please, like I said, if you go to the game, please just be careful and watch the weather and all that. Right, John. Right, so let's start. Talk about Bournemouth, and you come to City Ground. You beat us 2-1, and it was the start of the season. But as your opinion, how did you feel about that game went?
The game was a real mixed bag for us because. Certainly, it was still really early on in the season. I think that was our first away game. Actually, I think it was only the second game of the season. I think it was very early. And Bournemouth fans were still a bit unsure about how the season was going to go because we had quite a lot of injuries and suspensions. We had 5 or 6 youth teamers basically making starts in our team. Zena Robson-Rossi at the back, Gavin Kilkenny, who made a bit of a name for himself, Jordan Zamora and Jaden Anthony, who are probably the 2 most successful ones out of that batch, Mark Travers. We were very unsure about how things were going to go. And obviously it was 1-1 when David Brooks got himself sent off in that game as well. He didn't enamor himself too much to us early on in that period. Of course, David Brooks has since fallen very ill, and we obviously wish him the best.
We'll talk about that later on.
Yeah, which Bournemouth fans still chant his name on the 7th minute every single game for him. But Nottingham Forest seemed to be, decent. They weren't all that impressive, and certainly the interesting thing I think about that game was the substitutions was something that a lot of fans were very displeased about. The fact that it seemed quite negative to be still playing 2 holding midfielders in a 4-4-2 going up against a team that were down to 10 men, and with 20 minutes to go were holding on for dear life to try and get the draw, try and get the 3 points, which obviously we did in the end. So, it was just the start of what Nottingham Forest's early season was going to become. And for Bournemouth, it was the start of a fantastic unbeaten run. I think it was about 15 games we ended up being unbeaten at the start of the season to begin. So, it was a very different trajectory for those 2 clubs, particularly Forest at that point.
Now, what we're going to talk about before I get to all your players, I'm going to talk about Scott Parker. I know he did fantastic well for Fulham. He's come to your club, and as a club, I see Bournemouth like they're a good club, and they said they've been in the Premier League for quite a while. You've got Scott Parker, young manager, and he's proven a lot of doubters, to be fair. He proved me wrong because I thought when he went to Bournemouth, I thought he won't do well there, but he's done well. And like I said, you've been the top 2, the playoffs top 2. But as a fan, what's your opinion on Scott Parker?
So the interesting thing I think for Scott Parker and the fans' point of view of him is that we're we're still yet to be fully convinced, I think, by Parker. I think at the start of the season when we were winning games and we were sort of often dragging 3 points out of nowhere against teams like QPR and Luton that we really didn't deserve to get the 3 points against, everything was a lot more rosy. And we then hit the bad patch that Bournemouth tends to do sort of pre-Christmas, and the football wasn't looking all that good. And we were starting to see what the Fulham fans were talking about with regards to Parker Ball and the negativity that can be. And, Bournemouth have scored 2 goals in a lot of games, but they've almost never scored 3. They've scored 3, I think, twice so far this season. When you look at what Fulham have done this season, and they scored, 5, then 7, then 7 in a period, they will go mad with goals. When they smell blood, they'll go for the throat. Whereas Bournemouth will go 2-0 up and seem to just go, all right, that'll do. We'll take the 3 points now. Which is frustrating Bournemouth fans because, we're so used to, particularly when we went up in from the Championship last time under Eddie Howe, it was get every goal you can. If we can get 6 or 7, we'll go for it. I mean, one of our best victories is an 8-0 away win at Birmingham. And you feel if Parker was in that situation, 2-0 with a man up, I think we would have coasted to that. It's just that's the kind of difference that we're getting at the moment, I think.
Wow. Like I said, as a Forest fan, from looking at sides with him, I think I know quite a lot of Bournemouth fans, and I think there's like, it's got Parker the man. Is the man? Like I said, you've got a good side, and I mentioned you've got some good players, and I mentioned Dominic Solanke, and good player. Like one of my mates said to me, "Oh, he's not good enough for Championship. He's was it 18 million that he got from Liverpool?" I thought, yeah, he's not going to be great, but
19.
He's like. No, I would say you've got quite a lot of good players. Like we mentioned Brooks later, but you've got a good side, haven't you? And I think. I said, I'll mention like your opinion about your Premier League finish, but you've got a good side to be champions. But you formed, like I said, you mentioned about your form. I'm not going to mention the FA Cup because you lost the FA Cup to. But you've got a good side, haven't you? And we'll talk about the transfers as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Bournemouth side is pretty ridiculous for championship level at this point, to be honest. Expectations at the start of the season were probably about 4th. I think quite a lot of Cherries fans expected playoff. Now, if we didn't finish top 2, we'd probably see that as a failure because with the depth of the squad that we've got, players that you've got like Jamal Lowe doesn't get a start, Emiliano Marcondes will probably not make the bench at times later on this season. Quite a lot of players that we've got sitting in our squad that will start for other teams in the mid-table of the Championship. It's just ridiculous at this point. You've got Philip Billing doing fantastically, Premier League player.
I hate that guy. I hate that guy. He scored past Forest. Whoever the club he's at, he scored past it. Like he scored against us at Sick Ground. I thought, 12, he'll score, and he did. So, carry on, John.
Yeah, quite a few. I've seen a few comments in there mentioning Cantwell, who's just come in and has looked brilliant. I mean, I don't know how things didn't work out with him in Norwich, but he's easily a Premier League quality player. Siriki Dembele has come in. He scored the winner for us right at the end. In terms of fitting in, I think he's fitting in pretty well at the moment. The interesting thing with Cantwell is he's probably best as a number 10, but he's actually being sort of forced to play in as one of the 2 8s. So he's being asked to do a little bit more defensive work, which he has done. But it's going to put a lot of pressure on whoever plays in the number 6 when we go up against you tomorrow. But Nat Phillips has come in. He was playing. His last game before he played for us was the San Siro. So bringing in Freddie Woodman, who was arguably the best keeper of the last 2 years in the Championship for Swansea, and he's not going to get off the bench because Mark Travers is our current player of the season.
This is why I spoke to John before the winter started. The player they brought in, and I couldn't believe it. Like, was it 5 the last day? You mentioned Freddie Woodman, like best keeper in the Championship last season. He brought him in. He'd be a number 2, but there must be so much pressure now with like the players you brought in and the players that you already got in. And you said top 2. If you don't get top 2, it's gonna be a failure. And like I mentioned, Scott Parker, the pressure get like using these players to get in the top 2. As a fan, what like do you feel like if you don't get top 2, you might just like get the sacked because the pressure he's got on?
I think he'd still have a chance if he got us up through the playoffs, which obviously he managed to do with Fulham.
Yeah.
2 seasons ago. If he got us up through the playoffs, then no, I don't think he would. But I think if we didn't go up, I'm not entirely sure he'd get sacked either, because he's on a 3-year deal. You know, the money will be starting to wind down. It'll be our 3rd year of parachute payments. You know, you'd want to put a bit more faith into him. I think the people high up in the club would rather put their faith behind one man, considering how well we did it with Eddie Howe. That they're more inclined to want to stick with their man, I would say. But yeah, I'd agree with you. If it wasn't top 2, I think a lot of fans would consider that a failure. Not because we're just entitled to think that we belong in the Premier League, but just like, you've just got to be objective sometimes at looking at that squad and saying, if the manager doesn't get the best out of those players and doesn't get us up, it is the manager's fault, because that team is too good to not go up. And there's really big conversations when you look at our squad, when you look at Fulham, and COVID hasn't helped. Parachute payments are really causing the gap in the Championship between the top 4 and the rest to really sort of grow to the point where it's becoming a bit of an issue. And I think there's a lot of discussion, and good discussion, that needs to go on about, you know, how do we change the parachute payment system? Because even as a Bournemouth fan, yeah, I mean, I love the situation, but it's not, you know, if we don't go up, I worry about us financially in terms of how much we're putting into this promotion push.
People, if you're asking John questions about Bournemouth squad, about the season, blah blah, put in the comments below. If you want to be like a new member as well, people, be a member. It is $2.99 a month, so please do. John, there's quite a lot of matches for you, to be fair. This video, who's the players Forest should be watch out for? And like I said, I mentioned Dominic Slanky, but there's you got so many players, John. It's just like I don't know who to talk about. Like, what players that Forest got to watch out for?
It is an interesting one, actually, to pick out pick out players. I'd say Dominic Solanke is obviously a headliner. But the thing is that certainly in your last game you played with a back 3, didn't you? And you have played back 3 a bit this season. I think it suits Lowe and Spence for you to play a back 3. So Solanke has typically done very badly against a back 3, and of course he's going up against his old captain.
That's right, back talking Roger.
Steve Cook, who made 10 years before being sold on to Nottingham Forest, so is due a testimonial at some point in the next year or so. Who most fans were very disappointed to see go, but could understand why, because he wasn't getting the game time. But Solanke may well struggle in this game, I would imagine. The important players to probably look out for will be Todd Cantwell. How quiet can you keep him? And also Siriki Dembele. How is Jed Spence or the right-sided centre-back going to go up against him? Because, wow, he was something special against Blackpool. We don't have a dribbler like him in the side until he came in, and his ability to go past a player is quite something. But I rate Jed Spence very highly, so I would be interested to see what that kind of battle is like. Jayden Anthony may well be forced onto the right-hand side, is a really good player, but is more of a creative force. He's not necessarily going to go past a man. So, and then it is also the big thing is who plays the number 6 role. Is it going to be Ben Pearson or Lewis Cook, because Jefferson Lerma's banned? So, so that one's going to be interesting. Cook's looked back to his best against Blackpool, able to take his foot on the ball and make some really good passes, very press resistant, but we're not going to dominate the game like we did against Blackpool, or at least dominate possession against Forest like we did against Blackpool. So I would expect Ben Pearson to play, and he's great at cutting up play, but he's not great on the ball as a passer. So there's quite a lot of players to look out for. To pick one in particular is difficult, but picking out a danger man against Forest can be a bit tough as well. With I would say Brennan Johnson, Jed Spence are arguably 2 of the top 10 players in the league for me in when they're on form. And to find out Jed Spence obviously is on loan to you from Middlesbrough, who have their own very good right back, means they're a bit stacked in that position. It'd be interesting to see what you do to try and maybe get him again next season, whether you'd be able to.
Not happening, John. It's not happening. We wish. All his Forest fans, like I said, you just mentioned, he's been fantastic for us since coming on loan, but can't see it happening. But Forest fans, comment below. I know your answer, but do you want Spencer back at Forest? But that's super tough. The question for you, John, I think like with Forest fans, best place to drink in Bournemouth, John.
I mean, the good thing is if you're going into the Bournemouth town centre, you're never really that far from another pub or from somewhere else that's decent to drink or go out to. There's a couple of Wetherspoons in Bournemouth. There's one sort of more town centre, and then there's one sort of a bit slightly further out. There's a quite highly rated or reviewed place called 60 Million Postcards, which is sort of more of a sort of bar diner, but it's got rave reviews. A place I'd recommend is Sharky's, which is a sports bar which has really good drinks. It actually has, I believe, it has buy one get one free on Fridays. So and if you buy some pool, you get a free pitcher of beer, and has got tons of screens to view to keep your eye on the football. Of course, if you're going Friday night, you're probably not going to be there, but Saturday it'd be a good place. But there's the nightlife isn't quite as avid as it used to be a good decade ago in Bournemouth. It's not bad.
If the game is on, I am staying here after the game, sir. Now you've upset me. Now I want to get a little.
It's not bad. Halo's a decent nightclub. Cameo is big, but big doesn't necessarily mean better. So maybe find out what people think about that one when you're in town. But there's definitely some good places to go out. Don't get me wrong.
So people, if you are staying after the game, I'll be out as there. I'll be on. I don't drink, so yeah, get me a drink, people. As well, people, like I said, if get your score predictions down below, or ask John his score prediction later on. As I said, people, if you want to be, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do hit the subscribe button, like as well. I'm on 15 likes. If you can get me to 50 by the end of the stream, it'll be fantastic. Right, John, I asked this to everyone. I think you spoke about a little bit about it. Bournemouth season, like at the start of the season, I think you said you mentioned you'll finish fourth, but where do you think Bournemouth will finish? So from the start of the season, where do you think you'll finish? And now, where do you think you'll finish?
So at the start of the season, I think we all expected it to be a three-way shootout for automatics between West Brom, Sheffield United, and Fulham. And so we thought Bournemouth would bring up the rear in that and finish fourth. Now, I don't think we're catching Fulham. I don't think there's any chance of that. They're just too good. And when you've got a player like Mitrovic that's breaking records with 15 games to go, it's a bit ridiculous. So, not much you can do about that. But I think with Blackburn slipping up a bit and with Berrett and Diaz getting injured, obviously, you've got QPR. They're on a bit of a slump, obviously losing to Barnsley, which isn't the greatest result. But then you've got other teams on the up, like Forest, like Middlesbrough. And Huddersfield is still hanging in there as well. Obviously, there's quite a few good teams that are aiming for the playoffs. I'm confident we'll finish second. I think we've got enough. I think we've got a 6-point gap at the moment with 2 games in hand on Blackburn. I'm confident that we can still push and have. It's a very tough end of the season for us. We've got 7 ridiculous games to finish the season, but I'm hoping that we'll be okay and get that automatic spot.
So John's confident. He thinks Bournemouth will get the top 2. People in the comments. As sports fans as well, and as any football fan as well, where do you think Bournemouth will finish in this league? I said at the start of the season, I think Bournemouth will definitely get top 2. They've got a good side. And this January window, like I said, they brought in... And there's a player, there's a player you got from Cardiff. What's his name again, John?
Kiefer Moore.
That's it, Kiefer Moore. When I heard he was injured, how happy I got, because he's always a problem when he plays against Forest, like he did well for Cardiff as well. What was your feeling when you heard he was injured for? Is it 4 weeks? He's out for
8 to 10.
How are you feeling about that? Like I said, he's like, I'm not saying he's a different player to Solanke, but he's a good player. Like, and it's a massive blow, because like I said, the top 2. I think, like you yourself and Fulham, I think you'll get it, but you want to get the top, win the league with that kind of play in your side.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to. I mean, Kiefer Moore had one brilliant season with Cardiff. He hasn't been all that prolific throughout his whole career, but certainly, he's an international as well. He's vital for Wales. Wales are really going to miss him because they've got their playoff games coming up shortly. He's going to be out for those, but he's just a different option. We've had Solanke as our only recognised striker all season, so it's always been a worry that if Solanke gets injured, what do you do? And if Solanke's not really doing the business, how are we going to change things? And Kiefer Moore was that brilliant second option to be a fantastic plan B, or even play alongside Solanke. because he's just such a threat in the air, and he's better with his feet and has got more pace than you'd expect. For him to be out for basically the rest of the season is a real kick in the teeth. And hopefully he'll come back for the last few, and it'll just be a lap of honor at that point. But I don't think it will be. So I'm hoping he'll be back for at least a few games. And our last away game, our second last game, is against Blackburn. That could be huge. So, and then our final game is at home to Millwall, which again could be a really big game. So hopefully he'll be back for at least a couple of games. But yeah, a huge miss. He's only played 7 minutes against Birmingham when he came on, and then turns out he landed awkwardly and broke a bone in his foot, and is out for 8 to 10 weeks. So yeah, very, very disappointed for him to be out. But hopefully he gets back before the end of the season.
Before we talk Forest, I know it's been well documented. Like, we're going to talk about David Brooks. I remember when he was at City Ground, he absolutely hammered Forest before he got sent off. And John, like, as some Forest fans won't know about David Brooks, just explain to what I know is explain to Forest fans what's happened to David Brooks.
Yeah, so it was about 2 months into the season when he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. I think it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, rather than non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is cancer of the blood, I believe. But I'm not all too versed in it, but I know it's a type of cancer. And for someone who was 23, I believe, at the time he was diagnosed, I mean, that's just... football just becomes insignificant when something like that happens. And there was a wave of support from all over the football community, which we really appreciated. And at the time, I believe it was a Norwich keeper. There was another youngster that was also diagnosed with something as well. It just two very in quick succession. And we were just, as Bournemouth fans, we were just really appreciative of all the kind messages for him from all fans, no matter where they throw in the world, for his support. And the news is apparently that he's doing well. He's been to the training ground a few times just to keep in touch, but it's one of the most likely for you to recover from. It's one of the ones we're able to fight best. But it's obviously still requires chemotherapy, which anyone that will ever have told you what it's like is horrible to go through. And you just hope that he pulls through, and fingers crossed he'll be able to play again for us in the future.
Yeah, so I hope David Brooks recovers quickly, and hopefully all football fans, especially Bournemouth fans, see him quick back on the football pitch. I like to say, and as a rival fan, John, and as you know, Forest, like I said, we played against you a lot. We were shocking. But since Steve Cooper's come in, as a rival fan, you mentioned Spence, you mentioned Johnson. What do you think of Steve Cooper since he's coming to Forest?
Well, it's the funny thing with Steve Cooper, because I reckon Swansea fans are probably really regretting the fact that they let him go, because they were quite happy to see the back of him after 2 years, I think. When you look at the job that he did for Swansea, that basically by just bringing a few good loan players in and mostly selling some of their best players, he was able to keep them in the top 6 2 years in a row, which is something that Brighton's current manager really wasn't doing for them even at the time. For Nottingham Forest, who at the time were bottom of the league, to bring in a manager of quality of Steve Cooper, he's just shown what a great manager he is. Because Nottingham Forest, the Forest squad was not bad when you were bottom of the league. It clearly wasn't. You still had some very good quality players in there. They just weren't being told to play in their best way. There was clearly a lack of confidence. There wasn't great communication of whatever it was that going on between the manager and the players. And Houghton looked, like he'd completely run out of ideas very early on into the season. So you've only got to look at the form table to say, since Steve Cooper came in, who's got the most points, and you're right up there. And full on deserving to be in a shout for the playoff place. I think if he'd been at the start of the season, there's no. I would say you probably would be above us if he'd been at the start of the season. I think it would have been very close. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's a decent chance to say that in those 7 games, and particularly because we played you and it would have been a very different result, could easily have seen Forest very much competing for an automatic spot. I think it's a bit late now. I think because of the points gap, I would be very surprised and impressed if you were to make automatic at this point. Obviously, it'd be gutting for Bournemouth fans, but it would still be a hell of an achievement.
Yeah.
But I certainly see you as getting into the playoffs. And I was speaking to another Forest fan recently, and I think out of the teams that are likely to get into the playoffs, I'd probably normally rate the team that's hardest to beat to be the favourites. And it's certainly out of you and Middlesbrough, I'd say, if you're going to look at that. I think QPR are obviously a very good side, but they have their off days. And then the other team that's going to be in there isn't too easy to pick, whether that's Blackburn. I think they might fall away. So Forest are in with a really good shout of getting up there. Sheffield United obviously are a team that are going to be difficult to compete with as well. But you've got as good a shout as any team to go up. And if any side has had to deal with, or rather now that Leeds gone up, I suppose Forest are the ones that are most feeling as they're most deserved to get back into the Premier League at this point.
Before I said, you mentioned Steve Cook, Bournemouth legend for your club, and you mentioned you surprised, like he wasn't surprised but shocked that him come to Forest. And as a Forest fan, and people in the comments as well, what do you think of Steve Cook since he's been for Bournemouth? Like, are you? Like, I'm surprised the way he's been fantastic for us, John. Absolutely fantastic. I think we know it more better than everyone else. He's a leader, and I think that's what Forest have missed. And are you surprised? Like, he left. Like, we know he's not his wrong age now, 30 now. But was you surprised he left your club and to come to a team, Forest, like a big club, and he's done fantastic for us? So, what do you think of him so far?
I'm not surprised that he left, because he just seemed to be out of Parker's plans for the most part. The only reason he was even brought into squads was because we were running low on centre backs. But even when he did come in, I mean, I don't know how many people that are watching saw the Fulham Bournemouth game towards the end of last season. But that double save with the chest is
that was amazing. Boys fans have seen it. We've seen it.
Yeah. That's him to a T. That's he will put his body on the line for his team and for his club. And now that's Nottingham Forest. But I mean, I'm not surprised that he left, but I'm also not surprised at all that he's doing well. He is obviously, you said he's a leader, and I know he will have his off games, because he does, like any player. I know he's had one poor game for you so far, but he is a leader, like you said. He will communicate well with the other players in the team. He's used to playing in a back three and a back four, so he's got that adaptability. He's good on the ball, if maybe a little bit too confident at times, and will go for a run and try to take past four players.
He's a bit naive sometimes.
Occasionally he's naive on the ball, but he is relatively decently two-footed, because most of his career he played on the left of a back of a back two, and you have to be decent with your left foot with that. He's not completely two-footed, but he's good enough, and he's got the confidence to be able to play off either foot. And then he'll pop up with a goal now and again, and it doesn't need to be a header either. If you look at highlights. You should look at highlights. He scored an overhead kick against Ipswich in, I think it was League One.
I've seen that.
And he also scored with a back heel sort of a Cruyff-style flick against Aston Villa in the Premier League in a 2-1 win in our first season in the Prem. So, he's still a fantastic player. As far as I'm concerned, I'm surprised that a Burnley didn't go in for him, or Watford.
What Newcastle? I saw Newcastle were after him, wasn't there?
There were rumours. But I'm sure Eddie Howe would have loved him, but I think he probably considered that maybe going for Steve Cook would have been a bit too much of a I'm trying to bring the band back together kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not surprised at all that he's doing well. And that is probably going to be the most interesting battle, certainly, is if, assuming Cook plays in the middle of a back three, if you do play a 3-5-2, is Steve Cook versus Don Solanke. That's probably going to be the most interesting battle of the game, and whoever comes out on top could well decide the game.
So people have said, Don said it, there's going to be a battle with Solanke and Cook. People in the comments, I'll ask John in a minute. what is your score prediction for tomorrow's game? I will be at the game. Hopefully, the game is on. I've never been to Bournemouth before, so hopefully I can go there for the first time and we can get 3 points. Right, John. Last but not least, like I said, I tell everyone this prediction. I'm not going to give my prediction. Everyone knows the rules. I don't give my prediction until an hour before the game. Right, John. What's your score prediction for tomorrow?
It is a tough one. I'd love to say that we're going to win because every fan wants their team to win every game. Do I think we're going to win though? Not necessarily. But at the same time,
John, you're not confident.
This is a really good Forest side. You've only got to look at our recent results. We beat Barnsley 1-0 and we were the worst team, and that's Barnsley at the bottom of the league. We dominated Birmingham, fair enough, but Birmingham were pretty awful. And Blackpool should have got a draw against us. We were very lucky to beat Blackpool 2-1. We've got 3 wins on the bounce, but that does not tell the whole story. I would say I'm confident enough that we won't lose. I'm pretty confident we won't lose, but am I confident enough that we will definitely win? I'm not so sure. I'm going to be going with a 1-1 draw as my pick.
I've never seen a rival fan feel so even like a relegation team is by 3-4 the win. But bloody hell! I'm
realistic. I'm balanced and I'm realistic.
I'm loving it, John. I'm loving this. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, that's just what I think, and that Forest team. Particularly with the likes of Brennan Johnson and Jed Spence on the right-hand side, I don't want to discount what Max Lowen could do on the left. Graben's injured, isn't he? Is Graben injured?
Yeah, he's still injured.
Yeah. You've got Keelan Davis has come in and done a fantastic job to start with. And like I said, when we've played against back threes, if you do play back three, because you could play a number of formations, we've struggled. We have this season. It's been a really bad turn of events with Dominic Solanke struggling against a well-organised back three defence, which is what Forest has. So I think we'll score. I'm confident we'll score, and I'm confident that we won't lose. But as for that, I'm going to stick with the 1-1. And I'm going to remain realistic. But anything can happen on the day, and of course, you don't have Brice Samba. So it'll be interesting to see how your backup goalkeeper does, because I believe the last time he played,
don't mention it, John. Don't mention it.
He threw a ball in the net or something like that.
What it was a poor bad pass, and he miscontrolled it, and he went straight to the who did he play? Was it Middlesbrough? Yeah, we played Middlesbrough and went straight to the play, and he scored open goal. So
okay. So that could easily turn the tide. We could, bang one in from 30 yards because he doesn't get on the end of it or whatever. So, I think 1-1. Like I said, don't think we'll lose, but I would be very, very pleased if we won. And to take 6 points off you overall would have been a fantastic end to the. It would be fantastic.
Right. So you got John's prediction. He says 1-1. People in the comments, what do you think your score predictions? And we've got like another 2 minutes. People, if you want to do a quick message to John about Bournemouth, if you can. Right, people, like I said, it's been a pleasure, John. Thank you very much for coming on my channel. And like I said, I'm talking about Bournemouth. John, are you off to the game tomorrow? If it's on?
I'm not going to be at the game, unfortunately, but obviously I will be watching it if it's on and following it intensely. Okay.
So like I said, big game for both clubs tomorrow. Like I said, I'll be at the ground. I saw a comment as well. What time am I heading off? I'll be heading off at 9 o'clock in the morning because I want to see some seaside, but if it is open. So there's the first fans. I'll be there at 9 o'clock. I'll get there for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock. To see if I'm born, because like I've never been there before, and see the ground. But yeah, people, 84 people in. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, John. Thank you very much for taking your time for coming on my channel. It's been a pleasure. People, like I said, if you are new to the channel, please do hit the like button. I've got 22 likes. If you can get me to 50 likes, it'd be much appreciated as well. Subscribe if you're new. I'm trying to get to 7K before the season as well. And last but not least, I've not mentioned it. I've spoken about it a few times. I have got Kevin Campbell coming on my channel April the 28th of April, Thursday 28th of April. It will be a live stream on my DoreOnTour. If you want to see it live stream, please email me to watch the live stream. And like I said, it'll be a private event. It won't be live. It'll be a private event on my stream as well. So if you want to be a member, please hit the join button as well at the bottom, and you can join as well. Right, people, like I said, I'll be at Bournemouth tomorrow, and hopefully Forest can get a big win at Bournemouth. I think, you know what? Before we go, John, last time we beat you lot, at Bournemouth. We beat, was it? Can you remember the result?
No, because it would have been. Was it last time we were in the Championship? So that would have been 5,
Yeah,
6 years ago.
yeah. So it
Um,
was 2-1. It was
it was
2-1
2-1.
under. Yeah, it was under 2-1. Brits Malonga and Matt Fryer. I think it was Stuart Pearce as a manager. I think it was. Yeah, it was. Stuart Pearce was a manager. Stuart Pearce. Yeah, Stuart Pearce. Yeah, Stuart,
Almost rings
Stuart
a bell. I think so.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
Manager?
Yeah, Stuart Pearce. Stuart Pearce was a manager because that season he went up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, in the Forest fans, can you remember that as well? I think Brits Malonga. I think we beat you 2-1 and Brits Malonga and Matt Fryer scored. But Forest fans, that was a long time ago. I'm not going to talk about last season's game at York Ground because you scored in the first bloody 2 minutes, and
yeah, it was behind closed doors. It wasn't the greatest game. It was you were playing Harry Arthur as a number 10, which just showed how clueless the decision was to play.
Exactly.
To play him there. Like playing in number 6 as an attacking, pressing number 10 just was not the best idea. That one. I remember watching that game, just wondering what the hell he was doing, because I could see what was going wrong from sitting in my chair.
I was exactly the same. I thought, so what's Harry Arthur doing as a number 10? But we don't want to talk about Harry Arthur because, like I said, he's not with the first squad, and it is what it is. But yeah, right. Really great show. Like I said, John, thank you very much for coming on my show. Like I said, people, I'll be there in Bournemouth tomorrow. Get there around 3 or 4 o'clock, and hopefully the game is on. Peace and love, people, and I'll see you on Saturday night. Thank you very much.